Meet John. John is 62, retired 3 years ago, and by every visible measure, he won. $2 million saved, a paid-off house, a portfolio he built brick by careful brick. For 40 years, John was the smartest person in every single room about money. He never missed a 401k match. He never once carried a credit card balance. So here's the part nobody ever warned him about, and discipline has nothing to do with it. Somewhere after 60, a quiet glitch quietly switches on inside the financial brain. It does not feel like decline at all. It feels exactly like confidence. That is the trap. John will make 3 financial decisions this year he would have laughed at 50. And he will feel completely, totally sure about every single one of them. This is not a story about greed or scams or simple bad luck. It is about wiring. The same brain that built the fortune is the one that quietly starts spending it down. And John has absolutely no idea that the whole thing has already quietly begun. Here is what the data actually shows, and it is not what the retirement industry sells you. Researchers tracked financial literacy across many thousands of adults over many long years. After age 60, that literacy score drops about 1 full percentage point every single year. By 80, the average person has quietly lost roughly 20 points of real financial skill. But here is the line that should stop you cold. The confidence line does not move. Skill falls. Confidence stays perfectly flat. The widening gap between them is where money dies. Economists even have a name for the bottom of this curve. They call it the age of reason. Financial mistakes are lowest at 53. After that point, the cost curve only climbs. Young people have sharp brains but little experience. Older people have deep experience but slowing analysis. Their brain now processes brand new financial information noticeably slower than it once used to. John is past 53. Well past it. And his confidence has never once been higher. Now layer on the real dollar numbers because the cost here is anything but theoretical. Last year alone, adults over 60 reported losing $4.8 billion to outright fraud. That was a 43% jump in just a single year. 43% in 1 year. And 7,500 of those people lost over $100,000 each individually. And remember, those are only the people who actually reported it. Most victims never do. None of those people ever thought it could happen to them. And neither does John. Before you dismiss this as something that only happens to other people, please hear this. Let's keep this concrete and fair. John retired at 59 with $2 million saved. His plan was simple and good. Withdraw 4% a year, roughly $80,000. At 59, John ran that plan like a machine. Disciplined, boring, and almost perfect. He tracked every expense. He rebalanced exactly on schedule. He calmly ignored all the noise. His daughter Carla first noticed something quietly change right around his 62nd birthday. Carla is 32, a sharp analyst, and she reads her dad's statements together with him. She watched the withdrawals slowly creep. 80,000 became 90. Then it crept up again. Nothing dramatic at all. A nicer car lease here. A bigger gift there. A sure, why not? John didn't feel reckless. He felt generous. He felt like he had finally truly earned it. And every individual decision was easily defensible. That is exactly how this glitch hides itself. One reasonable choice is genuinely fine, but 40 reasonable choices in 1 year is a trend. Now meet Diana, 64, who retired the very same year with $1.5 million. Diana did not overspend at all. Diana did the exact opposite, and it cost her nearly as much. She got scared of the stock market and moved absolutely everything into cash at 63. She felt safe. She felt smart. She felt like she was finally protecting herself properly. But that cash quietly lost to inflation. 3% a year, every year, steadily compounding. Over a 30-year retirement, that one safe choice can erase half of her buying power. Diana thinks she is being deeply responsible. Her brain is telling her a very comforting lie. Same glitch, opposite symptom. One person overspends with confidence. One hides with equal confidence. Now compare both of them to Maya, 28, who has almost nothing at all saved yet. Maya makes plenty of money mistakes, but her brain still reliably flags them as mistakes. She feels uncertain. She double-checks everything. She asks questions. That very uncertainty protects her. Here is the genuinely cruel twist of this brain glitch, stated plainly and stated early. The skill that fades fastest after 60 is the skill to even know that you're wrong. So Maya feels a little dumb and gets safer. John feels razor sharp and gets exposed. And John has 40 solid years of being right to back up that confident feeling. Which is the whole problem. The track record is real. The current skill is not identical. Your past competence becomes the very evidence your brain uses to skip today's check. Carla tried to bring it up gently over a quiet family dinner one Sunday evening. She said, "Dad, your withdrawals are up 30% this year." He simply waved it off. John said, "Carla, I have been doing this since long before you were even born." And he truly meant it. That one sentence felt like wisdom. It was actually the glitch talking. Experience talking and decline talking sound completely identical from the inside. Truly identical. That is exactly what makes this so hard to ever catch. There is no internal alarm. John would absolutely notice if his golf game got worse. He would clearly see the scores. But money decisions have no scoreboard for years. The real bill arrives in painful slow motion. By the time the portfolio finally screams, your best decisions are already a decade behind you. So let's slow it all the way down and watch this glitch work, decision by decision. Because the mechanism is exactly the same whether you have $2 million or $20,000. Run the numbers, and this exact pattern shows up in 5 very specific places. Here's what nobody tells you about overconfidence. It is not arrogance at all. It is a gauge. Your brain runs a confidence gauge that is supposed to track your actual present ability. When you are young, the gauge and your ability rise together. They stay tightly linked. After 60, the chain snaps. Your ability drops. But the needle stays pinned up high. John's confidence needle is basically welded to the maximum. It has been there for decades. Every win he ever had soldered that needle a little more firmly into its place. So when his skill quietly slips, the needle reports nothing at all. Smooth, calm sailing. The studies are blunt about this. Older adults rate their financial skill as high as ever. But their actual tested skill on the very same questions has measurably fallen. The gap between rated and tested skill is the single best predictor of future losses. Not income, not raw IQ, not education. The gap. The unfelt, completely invisible gap. And the wealthier that you are, the bigger this gap can quietly grow before it bites. Because real wealth gives you plenty of room to be wrong for far longer without noticing. A poor brain gets instant feedback. A rich brain gets a long, silent, dangerous runway. John has a very, very long runway. That is not protection. That is delayed detonation. Carla understands all of this because she first watched it happen to her own grandfather. Her grandfather was sharp, proud, and certain right up until the very money was gone. He never once felt confused. He felt completely in control the entire long way down. That is the true signature of the glitch. The certainty stays perfectly intact to the end. Carla swore she would catch it much earlier with her dad, so she quietly started watching. Watching is exactly the right instinct, but watching from inside the glitch is basically impossible. You simply cannot audit the very system that is busy doing all of your auditing. Here's what actually happens with your spending after 60, in slow, quiet, invisible little steps. John's first year, he withdrew $80,000 and felt slightly guilty even doing it. Year 2, $85,000. The guilt was a little smaller. The justification was easy. Year 3, $95,000, and now it all simply, completely felt normal. Each step up quietly reset his baseline. The new normal erased the memory of the old one. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it speeds up sharply when your error checking slows down. A younger brain feels the jump and flinches. John's brain simply updates the baseline instead. $95,000 on a $2 million portfolio is now nearly 5%. And above 4% in a genuinely bad market, the math turns against you very fast. This is exactly where sequence of returns risk quietly enters the entire room. If the market drops early while you are withdrawing more, the damage becomes permanent. You sell shares low just to fund the spending. Those shares never come back to grow. A 5% withdrawal into a falling market can cut a portfolio's whole life in half. John does not model any of this. At 50, he absolutely would have built the spreadsheet. At 62, building that spreadsheet just feels like unnecessary extra work. He just knows. That single phrase, "I just know," is quietly the glitch's all-time favorite sentence. Carla built the spreadsheet for him herself. It showed his money running out by 81. John glanced at it for maybe 4 seconds and said the assumptions were too pessimistic. He did not actually change a single one of the assumptions. He just felt they were wrong. But feeling that a number is wrong is simply not the same as showing that it is wrong. At 53, John lived by that exact distinction. At 62, he forgot it even existed. The creep itself is never the real villain. The lost instinct to check the creep is. Now here's what nobody tells you about supposedly just playing it safe after 60. Diana's version of the glitch wore the exact opposite costume. Hers looked just like caution. After one genuinely scary market week, she sold her entire stock portfolio at 63. She moved the whole $1.5 million into a savings account and just exhaled. It honestly felt like the single most responsible thing she had ever done in her life. But a savings account paying 2% quietly loses to 3% annual inflation. Every single year, her money buys a little less, quietly, invisibly, and completely relentlessly. Over 25 long years, inflation can easily have what that pile of cash actually buys. Diana never once sees a loss on her statement. The number just stays 1.5 million. That frozen number is the entire lie. The real value sitting underneath it is slowly melting. Overspending always shows up on a statement. Under-earning hides off the page completely. Diana's brain deliberately chose the loss it couldn't see over the one that it could. After 60, the brain overweights vivid fear and badly underweights slow, quiet math. Loss aversion roughly doubles after a market scare. Now fear itself becomes the financial planner. At 50, Diana wrote out 3 full corrections without ever blinking. She knew the history. At 63, that exact same dip suddenly felt like the absolute end of the world. The market itself did not change at all. Her brain's threat dial got turned all the way up. And just exactly like John, she felt totally certain that selling was the wise move. 2 completely opposite actions. The very same false certainty. The very same invisible bill. Maya, 28, stayed fully invested right through the same dip, almost entirely by accident. She was simply too busy and far too unsure to do anything dramatic. And that saved her. Sometimes the real protective factor is not wisdom at all. It is doubt the brain hasn't lost. Here's what actually happens when a confident older brain meets a very smooth salesperson. At 50, John read every single fee line. He once fired an advisor over 1%. At 62, a polished advisor pitched John a very complex annuity over a long lunch. The advisor smoothly promised safety, guaranteed income, and absolutely no more market worry ever. John, who once dissected every contract line, signed it after skimming just 2 pages. The product secretly carried layered fees that could easily total over 3% every year. 3% a year on $1 million is $30,000 gone every single year. Over a long retirement, those quiet fees can easily eat up a full third of the gains. John didn't miss the fees because he got greedy. He missed them because he merely skimmed. Skimming feels exactly like efficiency, but after 60, it is often the brain-conserving effort. Reading a dense contract is precisely the kind of analytic work that quietly fades first. Good salespeople never actually target stupidity. They carefully target tired, confident certainty. John felt deeply respected, never sold to. And that exact feeling was the entire technique. The pitch flatters the one part of you that is strongest, your own sense of being savvy. And that savvy feeling is the very last thing to fade. So it is the easiest lever to pull. Carla found the annuity about 3 months later while quietly organizing all of his files. The surrender penalty, just to undo it, was $40,000, a full $40,000. John's response was that exact same 4 words again. I knew what I was doing. Notice he did not say it worked out well. He said he was sure. 2 very different claims. The glitch defends the feeling of competence far harder than it ever defends the actual money. When Maya gets any sales pitch, she texts 3 friends and then Googles it for an hour. Her constant uncertainty makes her slow. And slow is the natural enemy of every bad pitch. John's certainty instead made him fast, and fast is always the salesperson's very best friend. Your speed of deciding is a hidden symptom. Getting faster can simply mean you're checking less. Now here is the part that turns genuinely sad because these numbers are real and still growing. Adults over 60 lost $4.8 billion to outright fraud in just 1 single year. That is up a full 43% from the year before. The whole curve is bending upward. 7,500 victims over 60 each personally lost more than $100,000. And the average large loss for that entire group was $83,000 each. These are not careless people at all. Many were engineers, doctors, and retired executives. The scam that finally works on John will not look like a clumsy Prince email. It will instead look just like a calm phone call from his own bank's fraud department. The voice is patient, deeply professional, and urgent in exactly the right careful amount. It says, "We have detected fraud, and we need to move your money to a safe account." John, who is sharp and who is careful, follows every single instruction, step by careful step. The scam never beats his intelligence. It simply hijacks his urgency and his confidence. He is so sure he would never fall for a scam that he never asks if this is one. And the single biggest risk factor here is not gullibility at all, it is social isolation. Fewer people around a decision simply means fewer chances for someone to just say wait. This is exactly why Carla calling twice a week is worth more than any digital firewall. A second human voice is honestly the single cheapest fraud protection ever invented. But John quietly finds these check-ins a little bit insulting. He is a grown man. The glitch actively resists the exact help that would catch it. That is the cruelest loop. Here's what nobody tells you about why genuinely smart people refuse help the very most. Asking for help would mean admitting the one thing the glitch hides, that he is slipping. And John honestly does not feel like he is slipping at all. He feels exactly like himself. That is not denial in the usual sense at all. The internal signal is just genuinely missing. You simply cannot choose to heed a warning that your brain never actually sends to you. John's own father refused all help for many years and proudly called it pure independence. He equated accepting any oversight with becoming a burden, with slowly losing his very self. We somehow built a whole culture where needing a second opinion quietly feels like weakness. But for money after 60, getting a second opinion is the single strongest move there is. The wealthier that John is, the more this refusal costs him and the prouder he stays. Wealth and pride always scale up together, and so does the size of an unchecked mistake. Research shows the very largest dollar losses land on previously active, wealthy, older investors. They have the most chips sitting on the table and the most confidence to misplay them. The very thing that first made John rich, his bold conviction, now works against him. His superpower never actually disappeared. It just lost the brake that always used to balance it. Carla finally found the exact words that worked, and they were not about decline at all. She said, "Dad, let's just build a system so your good decisions stay fully protected." She never said he was failing. She said that his many wins simply deserved a guardrail. Framed in exactly that way, John finally agreed. Pride protected instead of pride attacked. The fix was never information. John already had information. The fix was an outside checkpoint. A system that checks decisions never insults the brain. It simply replaces the broken gauge. So what does an outside checkpoint actually look like in real practice? Just 5 simple guardrails. Guardrail 1. A written spending rule set at 55, locked in before the glitch arrives. If John had capped withdrawals at 4% in writing, the creep would have hit a wall. Guardrail 2. A mandatory waiting period on every new financial product. A full 72 hours. 72 hours alone would have killed that annuity. Pure speed was the only way it sold. Guardrail 3. A named second signer on all large moves. One trusted person every single time. Carla acting as a second voice would have stopped that fake fraud phone call completely cold. Guardrail 4. One annual outside review, done by someone with no commission at all to earn. A fee-only review reliably catches creeping fees, bad products, and quiet portfolio drift early. Guardrail 5. Retest all your assumptions on paper, even on the days you feel completely certain. Especially when you feel certain. After 60, certainty is a prompt to check, never to relax. None of these 5 guardrails require being any smarter. They require deciding before you slip. That is the entire trick. The competent you simply must protect the future you, well in advance. Maya, at just 28, can set up every single one of these guardrails for free today. Her real gift is not her balance at all. It is the decades of runway to build the system. John can still build it at 62. It simply costs a bit more to install it late. And late is so much better than never. The next decision is one you can still protect. Carla and John set up all 5 of them together over one single quiet weekend with a checklist. John's spending settled right back to plan. The annuity got unwound at a cost, but unwound. And the very next sales call, it hit a 72-hour wall and quietly died right there. Nothing about John ever got smarter. The system simply did the checking he no longer felt. That is the entire solution, start to finish. You outsource the gauge you can no longer trust. Here's the twist that almost no one ever says out loud, and it changes the entire picture. The brain glitch is not that millionaires somehow get dumber after 60. They mostly don't. Raw intelligence actually holds up reasonably well. Vocabulary and stored knowledge can even rise. What fades is narrow and very specific. It is the raw speed of solving brand new problems. And quietly, right alongside it, the internal alarm whispering, you just might be wrong here. So you keep every bit of your confidence and lose only your doubt. That is the whole glitch. John is genuinely not a fool at 62. In conversation, he is honestly as sharp as ever. And that is exactly why nobody, very much including John, ever sees the danger coming. A visibly confused person gets help, but a confident, capable person simply gets trusted. The glitch hides itself deep inside competence. That is both its camouflage and its weapon. Here, then, is the one single line to truly remember from absolutely all of this. After 60, the danger is not losing your mind. It is keeping your confidence while losing your edge. Read that one again, slowly. The confidence is the actual symptom, never the protection. John had always quietly thought his deep certainty was proof that he was just fine. It was, in reality, The one single thing that could never, ever warn him. This completely flips the usual financial advice right over onto its own head. Most people quietly plan to get help only when they finally feel confused or unsure. But the glitch basically guarantees that exact feeling may never arrive in time at all. So you simply cannot wait for the feeling. You have to act on the calendar instead. Build your guardrails by age 55 while your protective doubt still actually works. Diana now deeply wishes she had written just one rule. Stay invested, ignore single scary weeks. One single sentence, said at 50, would have easily outranked her terrified 63-year-old fear. Maya, hearing every bit of this at 28, simply writes her own rules down tonight. It is incredibly cheap insurance, a few short sentences now against a silent glitch decades away. The glitch is completely universal. The protection is entirely optional. That whole gap is the real story. John honestly got lucky. He happened to have a Carla who reframed the help as pure respect. But not everyone has a Carla, so you simply have to become your very own well in advance. Write the rules down while you would still argue with them. That is how you know they're honest. The single sharpest thing John ever actually did was finally agree to simply be checked. Not because he was failing at all, but because he finally understood that the gauge could. So let's bring all of this right back to you, whatever your own number happens to be now. You honestly do not need $2 million for this exact glitch to genuinely matter. You only need a future self who will feel certain while quietly, invisibly slipping. That future self is coming for very nearly everyone. The wiring is completely standard issue. The genuinely good news is the defense is boring, cheap, and completely within your control. Write your spending rule, add a real waiting period, name one trusted second signer. Schedule one fee-only review each year, and retest your own numbers whenever you feel sure. 5 guardrails, one single afternoon, decades of real protection for the you who can't feel risk. John built them all at 62 and genuinely saved the entire back half of his retirement. Maya built them at 28 and may honestly never even know the disaster she quietly avoided. And Carla learned to protect her own future the very same way she once protected her dad's. Because the goal here was honestly never to just feel smart about your money forever. The real goal is to stay fully protected even on the single day your smart gauge lies. If this showed you something real about your own wiring, subscribe to Wealth Logic and stay sharp. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions that you face every single day. Do the math while your doubt still works, and build the guardrails before you ever need them. Because after 60, confidence is the one number that lies and keeps a perfectly straight face.